In Jackson Hole last week.
Oh my
We-
Wow.
God, you guys, I'm not gonna be on this commission anymore unless somebody takes me on a vacation.
Too much traveling.
Jackson's Hole, wow, that must have
Yeah.
been amazing.
It was awesome. It was awesome.
All
All
right,
right, we're live on
Lisa.
YouTube. So
We
We need a
guys-
vacation.
Yeah,
Want a
Lisa,
plan?
they're setting our bar high.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's salute a flag that's near you.
Whoa, that's a profile.
Plug it in. I pledge allegiance to the flag
flag
of the United
United States of America,
and
to the republic
which
which it stands,
one nation,
one
under God,
nation,
under
indivisible,
God,
with liberty,
liberty, and
justice
justice for all.
for all.
It's kind of poignant for me to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I got relieved from jury duty today, so
Oh, congratulations,
so
I guess. I mean,
well, I've done it once before. I actually
Have
was
you?
the foreman of, yeah, I was the foreman of a jury back in college. I found it extremely rewarding.
I could
If-
see you
if
doing
you
that.
have an if you have an opportunity with, your schedule and time and stuff, it's really.
You look a little bit like Henry Fonda in 12 Angry Men.
I thought you were just going to say I'm an angry man, but that's par for my course. All right, so entertain a motion to approve the minutes of our December 4th meeting.
I'll make,
Made by Sherry,
Second.
seconded by Jim. All in favor? Show by your
aye.
All right.
all good. Why don't I'm going to change the agenda around a little bit because there's been stuff with the Trails Committee, so I'm going to have Bill go first. Bill, if you want to fill us in on the Trails Committee activities.
Sure, glad to. We had one work party where we cut through some death-defying briars so that the gator can bypass a swamp. It was let's do it in the winter when it's easy. Well, it was there was a lot of stuff there, and anyway, we're gonna build some small bridge. We've got goals this year that include recognizing the Boy Scouts and the various projects that they've done, and we're
Nice.
I think one of the most challenging is to try to build a bridge across the stream where the Pagusset crosses where the chimney is, because we saw last year how some of these valleys can really fill up with a lot of water. So that's a major goal we have for this year, and we're going to have the Marshmallow March on the 15th of March this year, and we're looking what we might do for National Trails Day for that hike. And this coming Saturday, we're going to be up at French's Hill, cutting the trail back quite a bit from where it is now. I mean, the sides of it, so that it doesn't grow in too fast, because of course we can't get the gator up there to do any mowing or whatever. And we do have a Boy Scout that's planning to do a project at French's Hill, some more bog walks and that sort of thing.
That's good.
That's excellent, and especially in these cold weather times, to get a team out there to do a work party is great, and get a tack on some of those invasive areas. Mowing.
Right. There's a lot of them at French's Hill.
All right. Anything else, Bill?
That'll do it for now, unless I think of something and I'll interject it, but go ahead.
On to Teresa, all the general activities you're involved with.
Well, we might as well continue with trails. Now it's been 2 months because there was no meeting last month, right? For conservation.
Correct. We did not have a meeting
This is
last month in January.
So right, the going back to the 2024 Trails Challenge, I had to finish up with that, and we had 22 people complete level 1 and 16 people complete level 2. So it wasn't a huge turnout, but it was good. People
I
seemed
still have to do it. I really wanted
You
to.
can still do it. I mean, it says 2024, but and for trails, I was able to get a bunch of fence rails and posts into the barn, delivered and into the barn, so that they're all set to go. The Trails Committee can have a work party as soon as the ground thaws out. And because it's been, December, January, I've been doing mapping, GIS mapping. I updated the Shelton Links brochure and got copies of that, 2,500 copies of that, printed up. And I've made new trail maps with close-ups of Oak Valley Trail, Silent Waters, and the Wysock Meadows property. And then Bill didn't mention it, but we're looking at applying for a grant, but for the recreational trails grant, and I've been compiling some information, but we don't know if it's going to get funded. They were expecting $10 million to be released by State Bonding Commission, and it was not. So they're not. It's a little up in the air. It is funded through the state, and the state has turned down, and starting in 2016, they no longer go through the federal program. So that would not directly be impacted by whatever's going on in Washington. But of course, it could be indirectly impacted if the state needs whatever funds they might otherwise would have allocated for this program. Anyways, for part of that, I worked on to get a grant. They really focused on interconnectivity and of greenways and hiking trails, and especially for neighborhoods and communities that are disadvantaged economically. And so I kind of went back to our open space plan, and I don't know if I can't remember if I emailed you guys something, maybe it was just Tom and Bill. But I put together some thoughts about getting the rec path better linked up with the Riverwalk. That was always in the open space plan, about the better system, and not just the open space plan, but the plan of conservation and development.
Good.
That there be a better linkage with sidewalks and so forth. You're all familiar with that. But the first goal, of course, was to build the rec path and to build the Riverwalk, and then the secondary goal was to get better linkage, and that's where we're at now, I think. So that linkage, and of course, he had that linkage, better linkage between the Shelton Riverwalk and the Derby Greenway with all the bridge improvements for Bridge Street. So that kind of ties everything together. So I was trying to just tie all that in to make it look like, instead of we have the rec path and we have the Riverwalk, we have a system. And so it's enhanced connectivity, like a plan for that. And I looked at the end of the rec path on Shelton Avenue at Pine Lake, and to where the sidewalks begin is about 1,400 feet. And back in 2017, the city, actually, I think Bob Kulatz had this state DOT department come in and do a road safety audit and through that section. And there's a whole report from them and so forth. And that first 1,400 feet, there's a piece of that in particular that it's very, very narrow. There's it drops. There's a retaining wall. There's a guardrail, and then a retaining wall. It drops right off, and you have the high school kids walking just inches away from traffic. And I actually saw traffic had to stop for some of the kids because there was opposing traffic, and there wasn't enough room to go around the kids, and they were like right up against that guardrail. But I looked at that, and I think for that whole first part, about first 750 feet, we can do, to begin with, a pilot trail, like a hiking trail that goes down just a little bit below the roadway. And it is surprisingly scenic in there. That's Curtis Brook down at the bottom. I had no idea it was so nice, because when you're driving on Shelton Avenue and you look at the opposite bank, it looks like a eroded cliff, but it's not that way on the other side. So I think it's feasible to begin with a hiking trail, and then if we can get a grant, a recreational trails grant, maybe widen that out a bit and make it more similar, not as wide as the rec path, but make it maybe 4 feet wide, 6 feet wide with some crushed stone, try and keep the grade to 8%. So you're just, a little bit below Shelton Avenue, parallel with Shelton Avenue. That's good. Yeah, right where the cursor is to the left of that.
Yeah, so this is
Yeah,
the
that whole area,
trailhead
that whole
parking,
stretch.
this whole
Yep, that
stretch
entire
down
stretch.
to here.
Yep, into that first house. And then, and that's the worst part, that's the narrowest part that is the most hazardous. And then from where your cursor is right now to the next intersecting street, that's Roberts, that also has no sidewalk. The report that the DOT gave us had some advice for that. For example, they suggested narrowing the travel lane by 2 feet, and a few other things that would provide some more room because the houses are right up against the road
Yeah, they
in that
do.
section. Yeah, and then at Robert Street, the sidewalks begin. They're not great sidewalks, but at least there's something. And so, you know, I figured if the Trails Committee could work on getting a little something started there, and then maybe with the grant, and that 1,400 feet, suddenly we've addressed more than half of it. And that just leaves that 650 feet for whoever, you know, engineering department, highways and bridges, you know, whoever, to address that one little piece there that has no connection or no sidewalk.
Teresa, two things. A while back, we had a gentleman attend our conservation meeting when we met in the Trails Barn. And he was, as I recall, looking for information about just this kind of an opportunity. So I would suggest going back in the records and see if that still is an outlet for either assistance or funding. And because that was through the Valley Cog, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would suggest going back to that. And then secondly, on Shelton Ave, where you were conceptualizing the path going in front of the homes here, I think some of those people park their cars along that sidewalk because they don't have either.
That's further down because where you're pointing right there doesn't have a sidewalk.
Okay.
But there is a walking space there, but cars
Mhm.
park there. That's right.
I just noticed it on the way to
Not
work.
much.
I just noticed on the way to work that over here between Plum Library and Echo Hose, a lot of the people of these homes, they park their car on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Not ideal.
But exactly, not ideal, but it's something. I think, you know, that section along the open space there where you have that, the guardrail, there's one spot in particular, there's a guardrail and then an old stone retaining wall that drops straight down. And it is so narrow right there. It's just a few inches. There's no shoulder at all for the highway. And
Huh.
the high school kids walk there every day.
I see kids always, people in general, yeah,
Mhm.
riding bikes up it sometimes, you know,
Yep.
adults in this with their helmets and everything. And
I know it's a state highway, but does the city's street committee get involved with state highway aspects like this?
They might, yeah. Yeah,
Right, so
my understanding is that when it comes to sidewalks, even if it's a state highway, the city has to do it.
Okay.
Which
I know
don't
there
really-
was some sidewalk improvements down by the corner by Plum Library just maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. It was
Right.
surprising because it was occurring during such cold weather. But I
And of
think
course, this
putting
sort of
in
thing
those
qualifies for, you know, LoSiP and, you know, those
Right,
kinds of
right.
funds. The DOT's got this connectivity program, trails connectivity program. I forget what they call it, but and I talked to Rimis in engineering about that, and he said he was very aware of the program because he used it to fund all the sidewalk improvements for handicapped accessibility downtown.
That I was just about to say the improvements that they made along the sidewalk near Plum Library had those kind of knobby elements for if you're blind to know
Blind.
that you're entering into a
Right.
off the
Yeah.
curb kind of thing.
That's
And I know
the-
that there's a blind gentleman who lives over there because I've seen him walking with his white cane. So
Hey, Teresa, when they're coming out of school, do they take the path behind the reservoir or do they go
Yeah.
down and then
No, they
come,
go
you
on,
know,
they
go
go
over
down
the
the rec
bridge?
path.
Okay, yeah.
They take the rec path until the rec path ends and then they
And
just walk down the
then they
highway.
just take a left. Okay.
Apparently, from what I gather, they've been doing it for decades. Which is sad.
Okay.
And the last thing for trails is I'm finally going to be doing those hiking classes, Suburban Hiking 101, scheduled at Plum Library. I meant to do it last year and then spent all my time preparing for the Trails Challenge.
I see the Valley Independent Sentinel posted it as an event on their page, so you may get people beyond just Shelton.
Okay, it's fine. Yeah, I have no idea how many people are going to sign up. It will be interesting. For litter committee, we're gearing up. I've got the new patch designed. Patches are getting made. The website's all updated, and we have like a real committee now. Our last meeting a few weeks ago, we had, I don't know, 6 or 7 people. It was the most we've had since, I don't know, like
Well, that's good.
as long as I can remember. It's like a whole new committee. Yeah. It's
I,
really,
I appreciate getting the emails,
okay.
no, just to keep, abreast of what's going on.
Right. Okay, and then community garden registry. We had our first meeting 2 nights ago. Since the last meeting we had before that was March 9, 2020.
Wow.
Wow.
Yep.
COVID.
That's exactly
You had a
right.
lot to cover.
We almost canceled that meeting in 2020 because it was March 9 and there was all the hubbub about it, and it was the following week that everything got shut down. So yeah, we were almost a super spreader.
Oh.
Yeah, so we did have a good meeting, and we've got some new rules and everything. One of the things you have it here, I noted is that I went through our waiting list, and I called a lot of people that were on the waiting list from 2022 and 2023 to see if they were still interested. A lot of people were not still interested. That's what happens. People sign up and then they move, or whatever. And so I have 6 people from 2022, 6 people from 2023, and 34 people who signed up in 2024.
Wow.
The rate of sign up is a little more than double the previous several years. And I don't know if that's because of food prices or what.
We were
I don't know.
having
It
a
was
conversation about this very subject the other day here at the farm, and we believe from information that we tap into that you're going to see a tremendous increase in people looking to do kind of like the victory garden concept, to be able to grow vegetables at home. They're healthier. You can control, the whole pesticide concept.
well, that was a big thing in 2020 as well. Everybody, as a matter of fact, a lot of us couldn't get the seeds that we normally get in January of 2021. We all logged on to buy our seeds, and they were all sold out because of all these victory garden pandemic gardeners. Yeah.
Be interested to know if it's more people living in apartments now too, with
That
all
could
the
be-
extra
could be a
parking.
factor in Shelton,
I
sure.
don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Not having
Usually
that
we
backyard.
actually get more people who don't have any sun in their yard.
Ah.
That's our typical gardener.
Huh.
Yeah, they have a yard, but it's shady, just like me. My yard is shady.
So-
So we talked about, because of this waiting list, we talked about some things to address that. And, we talked about the possibilities of expanding or adding a 3rd garden, and nobody wanted to do that. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of considerations. We've had some issues when Long Hill Garden was expanded. The new section, those new gardeners never really integrated with the rest of the garden. And we've had a lot of problems with weeds and stuff in that section because they just, they get out of their car, they walk to their they walk to their plot, and all the plots around them are weedy. So their plot is weedy and it looks fine. But if they were walking in the other part of the garden, it looks completely different. It's really striking. They didn't want to do that. So I had suggested a few things, and some of them we're going to do, some we aren't. We have a moratorium on new double plots. When we first started out, you could do a double plot, which is 20 by 40, which a lot of community gardens, that's just a regular large plot. But so we do have some existing double plots. We're not taking those away, but no new ones for our existing gardeners. And those who do have double plots have to meet higher standards. So they have to be really, really good gardeners. They have to really be using that those 2 plots. Otherwise, they're going to be asked to give up one of those plots. Let's see. Yeah, I
think
had
we-
actually suggested just offering half plots to new gardeners because we could get twice as many in, because many of our new gardeners fail out. They, it's harder than they expected. And, they just, August comes and they've just had enough and they just kind of quit. So we can kind of churn through them a little bit faster that way. And to me, it's easier to give than to take away with these plots. So it's easier to give if someone's got a half plot and they've been doing really well for a year or two, to give them another half and now they have a whole plot. That's easier to do than if someone has a whole plot and they're not doing very well. To take half of that away is almost impossible. But that's what we're doing there. GIS mapping. Like I said, December, January, I did finally do a printable open space map. It is posted on the wall outside of the auditorium now. Did a lot of little changes. I got some data from
Sorry.
Joe Welsh about Centennial Watershed State Forest, which was very interesting. And I think I did share that with you on the Google group. And that was through GIS.
I think you did a map for the Wysick farm recently.
Yeah, I did some close-up maps. I did for trails. That was under trails, but that's like a hiking map, to post. So I did Wysick Meadows, Silent Waters, and the Hope Lake Oak Valley Trail area. So these, because the Shelton Lakes map, that brochure, there's a lot. That's a very busy map, and I think it's hard for people to follow. There's just so much going on, and most people aren't hiking the whole thing. They're just hiking a little piece of it. So they're parking at the dog park and they're going to go walk towards Hope Lake. They don't need the entire brochure, that whole map area, because it is such a big trail system. So putting out some smaller maps just to make it a little bit simpler for them. But I think that is it for me.
Anybody have any questions for Teresa? Thank you very much. We've got a bunch of applications at planning and zoning to just to update you on. Some of them don't require any action, but I have them there just to remind us, and some of them are pretty old and might require an update in action, but I'll just go through them. We have one from 2022. I just keep it on here to remind everybody that the open space dedication from Gamble Place on Long Hill Avenue has still not been filed. I did check it on the city records yesterday that are with the online property transfers, and it still has not occurred despite a letter sent to planning and zoning, a letter sent to corporate counsel, and I've received no response from either. So I don't know what further to do there.
What property is that, Tom?
This is the Gamble Place. That was a cul-de-sac developed by Prestige Builders, and at the end of it, there was a piece of open space dedication.
Well, what's the address? What road?
Donovan Lane is the name of the road.
Right.
Sorry, no, sorry, I take that back. It's not Donovan Lane. That's over by St. Mark and Mary School. Give me a second here. Maybe I can find it.
It's right near there.
Gosh, it doesn't have.
They're
any-
supposed to deed property or fee in lieu of?
They were supposed to deed property,
Okay.
and that has not did not occur. And let me do a screen share here quick. This was the open space property. Maybe this is a better orientation. Here's the Board of Ed facilities over here in St. Margaret Mary School. with
Yeah,
their
just what's
access
the
property.
address of the property?
With a whole bunch of houses now, right?
Yeah, it is houses now. Honestly, Jim, I don't know what the street name is that they gave to it. Because the city's GIS is not updated.
Right.
Um,
I mean, there's houses on the open space?
no, there is no houses on the open space. It's just this open space parcel, which I think I'm screen sharing to you.
It's between Constitution Boulevard and what's the other street?
Um,
Long Hill.
Long Hill
Long
Road.
Hill Avenue.
Oh, Long Hill,
Long Hill
Long Hill
Ave.
and Constitution. I know where it is. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
So as you look at this
Yeah,
is
it's AJ's
current GIS.
property up there.
AJ
Okay, I know.
Grosser from Prestige
Yeah.
Builders. So the open space dedication was from Constitution Boulevard, so approximately even with where the next road, Sylvan Drive, has a cul-de-sac. And there's a couple parcels. This one is owned by the Land Trust. I don't know, it's the GIS is not keeping up with me here, but this parcel here is by the Land Trust, and then this parcel was the city of Shelton, and then this would be the city of Shelton. And you can see the brook here, Ivy Brook, that comes down and goes through those pieces. So the open space parcel of this area that I'm circling with my cursor roughly, has not been transferred to the city for
Yeah, how do you access that?
accessing it. Not that there's any trails on it right now, or maybe there might
Sylvan
not be.
Drive.
But
Sylvan
you
Drive
come
through
off of
Land
Sylvan
Trust.
Drive here. This is you got it at the end of the cul-de-sac there.
Isn't that private property?
No, there's a segment here where the parcel comes right to the end of the cul-de-sac.
The Land Trust.
The Land Trust has that. Shelton Land Trust.
Okay.
It's 12.49 acres. And then down here is the city of Shelton with another 5.2 acres.
Has anybody been down there to see that land trust? Is that a noticeable, I mean, is it a well-defined access corridor?
I haven't been down there in a while, but we're looking at a Google Earth, and I don't see any encroachment from neighboring lawns. There's no trail or anything made there. There is, as you can see in this tree line, a little bit of a corridor that's from the Tennessee gas pipeline. It's just the open space goes, here's the cul-de-sac of the new development. And so the open space, is a nice significant strip, and would work in concert with any future open space dedication from any future development of the St. Margaret Mary's property, which is
All right,
pretty
well, we'll have to
extensive.
keep on that one. All right,
So yeah, just
moving on.
moving on. The Donovan Lane, which is a little bit near the Board of Ed property. We had requested a fee in lieu of, because there was no open space fee. The planning and zoning, I say no response in our agenda, but actually they approved it with no fee in lieu of payment. So I don't know how to address that. I mean, it's pretty plain and simple and clear cut when you do a subdivision in terms of an open space dedication, which is optional, whether they consider that or a fee in lieu of a land dedication. But it's not optional to avoid either.
Well, you did send a letter already, remember? I know
did.
you
Yeah,
remember
we
that.
sent a letter on October 8th. We sent a letter.
Right.
Conservation Commission supports a payment in lieu of open space for this proposed 3-lot subdivision. We note that there is no abutting open space.
No, there was one after that.
Unfortunately, they do not have it on their Google Drive. I don't know what that means.
Well, they probably thought it was
let's ask
supposed-
what
So,
the,
but basically, the
Right.
letter revisited the regulations because looking at the minutes, it looked like P and Z's thought was that they didn't want to, that they couldn't require fee in lieu of because the property was too small. But looking at the regulations, that doesn't make sense. And it's never been interpreted that way. And that's what the letter basically said.
Maybe
we
they
had
looked at who owned the property.
That's neither here nor there. The person who owns the property and has a house on it, and they subdivided into 3 lots, the existing house
very
and
generously.
2 other parcels. And they just did not require the fee in lieu of, which the fee in lieu of, normally we think of raw land with nothing on it and 10% of its value. If there is a parcel that has a house on it and then you're subdividing it, your fee in lieu of is based on the land value portion of the parcel, which in this case, according to the city's assessor's records, would have caused about a $17,000 payment as a fee in lieu of to the open space trust account. I think we should have I should have a follow-up conversation with.
I'm
city
gonna resend that,
Yeah.
send a copy
Yeah,
of that
send-
letter to you.
Resend the letter and ask what the action was or what the resolve was from the letter.
Okay.
So,
And a copy of that also went to corporate counsel Fran Teodosio.
yeah, ask them to clarify why, whatever what the resolve is to negate the fee in lieu of.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want them to think that we
Forgot or
not on top of this.
dismissed it. Yeah. The next one is quite disappointing. 390 Shelton Avenue. To refresh everybody's memory, there was a PDD application for 16 homes on the 5 acres. They had their public hearing, which they closed in July. In August, the P&Z had a consensus for staff to prepare an unfavorable resolution. Ruth Parkins made the motion, saying that she didn't feel the location was appropriate to use the PDD mechanism. So they did that in August. In December, I asked P&Z what the status was of that motion being prepared. And at that point, corporate counsel said they had a conflict of interest and could not prepare it. So it took a little time to get another attorney to prepare the negative resolution. As you know, normally that was the kind of thing done by Tony Panico, the former part-time town planner who retired and has not been replaced. But neither here nor there. No resolution was prepared, but on January 22nd, Planning and Zoning did approve the PDD for 16 homes on 5 acres. So they reversed their consensus from August and had taken no action from August until January 22nd. During that,
Why did they reverse?
they felt threatened that if they did not approve that the alternative would be forced upon them. And the alternative was an application by the same applicant for the parcel to do an 830G component with 56 units. And so there was 46 townhouses and 6 ranches proposed in that 830G application. They made a number of mistakes in that they withdrew that application and then they reapplied. Their 830G application that they had not withdrawn utilized a zone that they were recommending called a Huntington Affordable District, I think was the name. And that district and change to the zoning regulations for that's a legislative aspect of the zoning. That would apply only to one parcel of land in the city. And that's the definition of spot zoning. And so that would not have really been allowed, but they felt threatened by that. And so with that threat, they felt that the only alternative was to approve a PDD in a residential zone completely surrounded by residential zone, which is a bad precedent, in my opinion.
Unbelievably terrible precedent, because now every firehouse, any property next to a firehouse, open space, a cemetery, anything else, oh, let's put up an apartment building.
So let me expand on that for just to put on our recording here. Attorney Teodosio had made a determination that the parcel of land, which was the open space dedication from the Aspatuck condo development, since it was a dedicated open space and never would have a residential use, that could be classified as a non-residential area. And that then allowed the concept of a transition zone, which the PDD regulations reference, that a PDD can apply in an area that's in transition between a non-residential area and a residential area. I think it's kind of ludicrous to think that an open space dedicated area permanently protected is now going to be determined to be a non-residential area and thus open up the concept of a transition to abutting residential parcels. As that's what basically Bill is referencing, that concept is you can say, okay, that firehouse is a non-residential area. And so this parcel of land next to it is a transition area and can be perhaps utilized as a PDD. I think it really opens up a huge Pandora's box.
Terrible, terrible.
And I don't know how to address that. I mean, one option would be to recommend that planning and zoning amend their regulations regarding the PDD to expressly prohibit its use in any residential zoned areas. But that may have ramifications too. I think it's something that requires study. And unfortunately, I don't know that anybody who has the regulatory power is going to study it. But, you know, having spent over a quarter century now, and Jim's longer than that, and Teresa's been here a while too, you know, trying to protect open space and natural features and passive recreation, to have thrown in our face that, oh, that now allows me to do a PDD right next to it is, it's offensive, extremely offensive. I've been vocal personally about my concern or aghast at this, but I don't know as a conservation commission how we can be effective.
It almost makes you cautious for future open space if there's a nefarious reason for it down the road.
Well, put yourself, you know, we talk about our quality of life and trying to encourage people who have some farmland or land that is, you know, beyond just one building lot kind of thing, to say, hey, maybe we appreciate how you've cared for this land for the community for years, and we'd like to see that continue for many, many more years and leave a legacy for your family and so on. Now, if they were to preserve part of their property as open space, would that now be considered a non-residential area because it's protected and preserved from any residential use? And then the farm next to it or a land next to it, parcel next to it, would now open that up to be a transition area.
That's
and
what
they
I,
could do
yeah,
a PDD on it.
that's
It's
what I was saying.
awful.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah. Crazy.
It's just it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, you know, with apples in Seattle versus apples in New York. You know, an action that they're taking here has that butterfly effect that is going to impact, or can impact, will impact the entire city. And I don't think they were cautious enough in their reasoning.
It's like
So
going back, it's like going backwards.
it's a leap backwards. It's not just a step backwards.
Right.
I don't know how to, I don't know what the best course of action is to try and correct
It
that.
doesn't seem like anyone's listening to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody said something to me recently. If you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu.
That
And,
makes sense for property, that's for sure.
you know, we've been very successful as a concept. I don't want to negate the success we've had over so many years with preserving properties and doing passive recreation like the rec path and all the success we've had, and we're purely advisory. And the only way we can move forward is the power of persuasion. And I think we have been persuasive because acting as the environmental consciousness for the community, we've been consistent in our opinion. We haven't wavered from it. Maybe they're not always happy with it. But I think you do gain respect from being consistent. And it's just troublesome when that, in the face of that, the people who have the power to make the decisions are either ignoring us, as we've talked about with open space not being dedicated or fee and lieu's not being paid, or now our PDD regulations being really destructive.
Mhm.
I mean, I've said my piece. I'm talking too much maybe, but it's upsetting. I don't know what others have to say.
I think we concur with what you just said. It's just a matter of frustration to discuss this and not even have, you know, a little bit of support behind us from City Hall with a better understanding of what we're trying to do. Or the understanding was there and is suddenly going away or something, like you said, if you're not, that quote sounds logical.
Well, there's obviously a conflict of interest because the person who would fight it put up the money to hire a lawyer to say, of course you can't build a 56 unit thing in the middle of a residential area with a on the curve and all that. The guy that would put that money up and say it is the guy that owns the property.
I'm not really thinking about that, Bill. I think that boat has sailed. The approval was issued, and irregardless of who the property owner was, the impact of the decision on the future development of the city is what I'm wondering about. I think the PDD regulations should be changed. I'm a supporter of the PDD regulations. I mean, I've lived in the community all my life. I've seen how they have been successful in creating opportunities for development and investment that could not be foreseen within our existing regulations. You know, Frank Osak, as a Democrat, and Ole Severson as a Republican got together and developed these kind of regulations to try and capture an investment that might occur within Shelton when the Route 8 corridor was built. And the very first PDD was Cheeseboro Ponds, which is now, I think, occupied by Sikorsky, which is on the southern side of Route 8. You know, they came in and wanted to do an office building, like a medical facility, a laboratory. There wasn't anything in our zoning regulations that would encapsulate the entirety of what they wanted to accomplish. But the PDD mechanism allowed them to do that. And they set aside a significant buffer around the property. It's over near Far Mill River, that created some private trail system for their employees to have, you know, health and wellness. You know, that was a perfect example of the benefit of a PDD mechanism. And it was never envisioned to allow large apartment complexes or residential developments such as this. And so I think the PDD mechanism needs to be revised. Not thrown out, revised. So, and it's not something we really need to act upon tonight, but I think it's definitely food for thought on what our best, I don't want to say plan of attack. It's not the right way to put it. Our best strategy is to make the PDD mechanism more successful for the city. So I'll move on to the next one. The next one I had on the agenda, that was the 830G reference. They had two of them. One they withdrew, and then a second one that is now pretty much going to be withdrawn because of the approval of the 16 homes. But I will say that that application for an 830G, I think, would not have been successful because that is spot zoning to say, here's a zone we're going to create for our zoning regulations, but it only applies to this specific parcel. You can't do that. Moving on, 48 Long Hill Crossroads. On January 22nd, the homeowners at the Hawks Ridge paid for environmental consultant, a traffic consultant, and so on, and they have been meeting with the applicant and the applicant's attorney, and they've come up with some changes that personally I looked at as improvements, but they were kind of last minute as they were presented to the commission, and but they did make some improvements to how that water course would be treated. I don't know if they're all online because it was really back between the two parties. But they did have, I believe the public hearing was extended so they could encapsulate all those new drawings. So included some buffer along Long Hill Crossroads, a natural vegetated buffer, and involved consolidating two separate structures to be one structure, so there'd be less pavement. When we get more information, I can share it, through screen share at a subsequent meeting. But generally, there was some improvement to the application due to the input from the homeowners association's experts that they hired. They're over on Constitution Boulevard near Weebosset. If you recall, there was a couple applications that worked in harmony with one another. One was to amend the zoning map. There was an R1, R2 zoning and an R3 that across the combined 7.4 acres, they wanted to make it R3. And then in conjunction with that, do a DRD, a cluster, a single family home. It would have given about 39% of the acreage as open space. And it's adjacent to city open space. But that application for a DRD was dependent upon the zone change to be an entirety of an R3 on the entire assemblage of property. And that was denied by P&Z. So the applicant withdrew their application for the DRD. We had written letters in support of the DRD concept rather than a standard development. So that's withdrawn as well. Denied and withdrawn. And then the last one on my list was there's an application by Attorney Steve Bellis for his client to do a age-restricted residential development overlay zone. They initially were going to apply that to all of the state highways going out a certain footage. And then they've changed that a little bit to be just a couple of select highways. But the applicant and the address that they were considering this for was a piece of property, Teresa, near the Roosevelt Forest, the Shelton, Stratford border. We had an application there, might be over a year ago, and they hadn't notified the town of Stratford on the zone change. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
So-
Yeah, Cranberry Bog.
Cranberry Bog, yes. It's in essence that parcel would be encapsulated by this zoning amendment, but thoughtfully and properly, as opposed to the other 830G application where they only want to apply a zone change to a single parcel. The applicant is looking to apply it to as an overlay zone. So that would be similar to how the PDD works. You have the the SDA, the Special Development Area, is a floating zone defined along like the Bridgeport Avenue, Route 8 corridor, and some other places. And then the PDD as a what's the word for it? There's an overlay zone, and then the PDD can apply in that overlay zone. So this age-restricted residential development overlay would be in this corridor. This is where it can occur, and then you would apply for it to be within that area on a specific parcel. So that's coming about. What caught my ear when it was presented was that the concept of an 830G, affordable housing in the community, the percentage of deed restricted homes. Some towns have reached a level where they can have a moratorium in their community so that an 830G application cannot be utilized. They've met certain goals or thresholds. And those are determined by deed restricted properties and also age restricted properties, which I did not know. So they're given, I think it's a half credit per unit. But surprisingly, the Planning and Zoning Commission, in their discussion of this zone and that aspect of it, doesn't know where they stand. They don't know what our count is of preserved and age restricted, and they don't know where we stand. I don't even know if we're anywhere near the potential for a moratorium or not, or it's just kind of bizarre that without a town planner, we don't know things that we really need to know to make fruitful decisions. So that was kind of surprising to me, but it's back and forth right now in planning and zoning, and really might not involve a conservation commission opinion or aspect other than it relates to 830G, and that sometimes has a driving force over preserving some open space areas. So that's it that I know of for applications that are before P&Z. So next month's agenda hopefully will be much less because a lot of these will be eliminated. Next item I have is our budget. We unfortunately do have to approve a budget tonight so that it's submitted in time for the budget process that the city requires. So I've shared the screen of the Excel spreadsheet sent to us by the finance department. One column has our 2025 budget. And reminder, the fiscal year ends June 30th. And not to go into all the numbers, but the overall total is 80,041. And then the fiscal year 2024 actual, that is what we have expended from all the line items. And up until now, we have spent 65,152 out of that 80,000. If I go through all the line items and just put the same amount in, the payroll item, that is done by the finance department based upon how personnel and human resources works. We would have a 10.6% increase, even if everything is left flat. So my question is there anything within these line items that we want to adjust or move around or minimize? A lot of them relate to trails activities, Bill, so I defer to your thoughts on that.
Well, we're talking about an application for a grant for significant things. So, but other than if we have that opportunity and we're going to propose it, there's nothing dramatically. But I am a little confused. One, the actuals is fiscal year 2024. So was that for 12 months? Because then the next is the budget for 2025.
That's a great question. I'm looking at the sheet as you are, as it was given to us. I would have hoped that that would be fiscal year 2025, but it makes no sense when I look at things like the community garden having expended everything except $40. That certainly is not the case, Teresa.
We bought deer fencing and so forth.
Okay. Well, I guess I think, Bill, you're right. It does seem confusing. It says fiscal year 2024 instead of fiscal year 2025. I wonder if there's I'm looking at the cells. There's no hidden cells in between. So, I guess though, in terms of the budget going forward for fiscal year 2026, meaning starting July 1st of this year, are there any line items that you feel we need to consider adjusting?
I would say no.
I think the same. Does anybody have, I mean, I can make a motion as the chair. I make a motion, we submit the budget as shown on the screen here with a 0% increase other than the salary, which is dictated by human resources. Anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second it.
Second by Bill. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The open space trust account is an element that hopefully will come up in the budget process. It hasn't been funded for several years, and the asset account still has a negative balance, but the only thing that does is it makes it difficult for the city to react promptly in competition with the free market system of a developer. The city, I just want to be clear, the city's always been supportive when we said, hey, we need to look at this parcel of open space. And we had a parcel most recently, I guess, would have been the one near the Overlook area, that assemblage. And Kelly Vazano was right on it. And we moved forward and we were able to acquire it. And even though there was a negative balance in the open space trust account, there were but you know, memories of things on Soundview Avenue still are in my head as where we weren't able to react promptly in competition with a developer. And so that's why that open space trust account was created. Quality of life. I don't know that we have any quality of life issues at the moment. I am aware of a couple of things that are in the works or negotiations with agencies outside of the city of Shelton towards preserving land in town. But I really see no need for us to go into them since we won't be contributing towards it. But it will be beneficial. Let me move to comments by members. Unless somebody else had something of a quality of life you wanted to go into executive session for. I don't think so. Okay.
Nope.
I'll start off. Lisa, thank you for coming repeatedly to our meetings. Know that I am still actively trying to see the mayor fill the 2 vacancies that are on our Conservation Commission for some time.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Sherry, you're next in my Brady Bunch box.
Well, I have realized I have a 2-bay garage that I had completely painted and all the wood repaired and replaced. I had my entire home on the outside painted, repaired, anything, and then I just completed the inside. All leaks, damages, whatever happened, completely painted and repaired. New light fixtures everywhere. Outside, big brick wall that has been deassembled and rebuilt. And so I just realized I've probably spent 2 trips to Europe doing all this, but I plan on living here forever. So I hope I don't have, we've been here for 40 something years. So the first you do it all when you move in, and we did it all probably at our 25th. And we just did it all again. So I was proud of that. That kept me very busy, and that was a good thing.
Good,
Good for you.
good, good for you.
Thank you. It doesn't have a lot to do with conservation, but a little personal best.
It's all about person, we're about the people too.
You maybe
Thank
do a
you.
quick calculation. I've owned my house now for 33 years.
A long time. All of a sudden something breaks and you're like, really, that broke? I just fixed that. But yeah, it was 20 years.
Right.
It was 20 years ago.
It was 20 years ago.
No, my most recent thing was replacing my oil tank in my basement. So
Yeah, I did the oil tank. I got a brand new driveway.
Oh.
Yeah, I got a
Wow.
sub pump because we had
You went crazy.
I've never had a flood in my house, but you guys know this from previous meeting, because whenever it happened, we were having a meeting, but yeah, good 6 to 8 inches of water in the basement. That was a Yahoo. Yeah. So a lot's been in the last 18 months, and I broke my wrist. So
Wow,
now I'm going to Europe someday.
good.
let me know if it's Ireland. I'll take you there.
You deserve it.
Thank you.
Lisa, you're below Sherry on my box, so you're next.
All right. I just thought it was interesting hearing about the gardens. The Plum Library has a seed library, just opened. They've been having it a few years. It started this weekend and it goes through the fall. So Teresa, if you know anybody who needs seeds, it
What
is
kind
in
of seeds?
it's like all kinds of stuff. It's flowers, vegetables. It's in the old Ripton Garden Club does it. So I think they maintain it, and I think they do appropriate seeds for the time of year. And sometimes there's even little
So what does that mean, a seed library? Because I'm not going to like return the seed when I'm done.
no.
You can check it out, but you can't check in.
No, they're free. They're totally free, and
Just free seeds.
yeah, and so they actually used they're using a little card. Remember the old wooden card catalogs that, with the
Yeah.
drawers? So they're
Yeah.
using that, and they're putting like packets of seeds. Some of them are actually like from Burpee or whatever, packets of seeds, and everyone's allowed, they ask you to take up to 3, so you don't like clear the whole thing out. So yeah, it's good. I took some last year myself, some zinnia
That's cool.
seeds.
When does
Yeah.
it start?
It started last weekend. So, and it
Wow.
goes through, they do it through, I want to say September or October. I can't remember. It's all for a while. And the seeds will change, and they'll refill some of them. So it's
Good.
kind of, it's a nice
Interesting.
community. Yeah. So spread the word, or if you want to try something and you don't want to spend a couple dollars on seeds, you can go in there and check
Good
it
to
out.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Oh.
good.
Well, if you ever want to see a fantastic display of that type of cabinetry for the Dewey Decimal System, head to the Sterling Library
Oh.
at Yale University.
I worked there. So,
Oh.
and when I worked there, it still was that all the card catalogs were still there. They're not fully there anymore. When I was leaving, they started to take those out and make different space. But yeah, that was quite a card
Quite a
catalog.
display. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, quite a library.
Jim, you're next.
Really, I guess I really don't have anything to say tonight. Lots to think about, not a lot to say.
Well, better to ponder than to espouse without.
I feel like you needed a pipe when you were saying that. Well,
Yeah. You look like
Yeah.
a seaman there. You're ready to
yeah, he needed a
and-
pipe
yeah.
and
head into the lighthouse for the evening, Teresa.
I don't really have anything.
Tom.
I'm good too. Just get out and hopefully we get some snow tomorrow and everybody can get out and enjoy the cold
There you
weather
go.
over the next few days.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, get out there and shovel and have a heart attack.
Well,
Oh,
No, he
lots-
meant play in it,
Shovel, don't have the
Bill. He
heart
meant
attack.
to play in it.
Bill.
Just-
Bill, do you have anything inspiring to add?
Well, that's probably is appropriate for this, some of the things in this meeting today. But anyway, no, I'm all set.
Well, I will say this. Trevor, my oldest son, called me about an hour ago and told me that yesterday it was 80 in down in well, he's in south of Charlotte. He's in down near Charlotte, North Carolina, South Carolina, Lake Wiley. And he said today was around 60, but it was still good golf weather. So there you go. That's what the South has for you.
Well, it's
Well,
perhaps
actually, we're leaving for St. Simon Island next week for
There you go, Bill. You're
2
ready to
weeks,
go.
bringing the clubs.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We had inversion levels in Jackson Hole. You'd get on the tram in the morning and it would be 8 degrees on the bottom of the mountain. And then when we got to the top, it was about 26 degrees. And
Wow.
Wow.
it was pretty
Heat.
interesting.
That's
Heat
interesting.
rises.
Yeah. Well, it
I-
gets trapped.
I had a young man on my schedule today, a 17-year-old, and he moved here 2 weeks ago from Arizona. And I was,
Shock.
but he did say it was, I think he said Flagstone, so he doesn't see snow
Oh,
in
Flagstaff.
Arizona.
Flagstaff.
Yeah,
Flagstaff.
Flagstaff. That's
Yeah,
pretty high,
Flagstaff
yeah.
is cold.
Flagstaff,
Yeah, that's
sorry,
cold there.
Yeah,
Flagstaff.
there's some cold weather there.
We
Yeah.
went
Flagstone
skiing
is
there,
everywhere.
in fact.
Yeah, but at first when he said Arizona, I was like, he's not cool on New England yet. You know, obviously his father's job brought him here, but I was thinking, what a shock to be 17 and have to go to a new high school. You know, just must be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Remind me, I slept in the back of a pickup truck in Flagstaff, Arizona, on the side of the interstate once. So
Flagstaff. I must have been thinking of the Flintstones, Jellystone Park.
well, I see we have nothing left on our agenda, so we stand adjourned and look forward to seeing you all next month, if not sooner.
Bye all.
Good.
Bye-bye.
Very
Night.
good.
Take
Bye
care
for now.
all.